Hello and welcome. You are now tuned into the Ebb and Flow podcast. I'm your host, Atlanta-based author, model, and artist, Ebonee Davis. Peace, family. Welcome to the Ebb and Flow podcast. It's your girl, Ebonee Davis. And today we're going to be talking about plant medicine. We're going to be talking about psilocybin. We're going to be talking about iboga. And we're going to be talking about ayahuasca. And all of these things have a little bit of clout right now. They're buzzwords, especially in the wellness community, in the spiritual community, and just communities that don't even associate with those things, but see them as things to either oppose or they want to be a part of recreationally, or they've heard about them, their friend has done it, they've seen it on TikTok, they've heard that there's some benefits, they heard that there's some side effects. You know, we're going to go into it. I've experienced all three personally, and I'm just here to share what I went through, what I got out of those experiences, who I was then versus who I am now, and just going into the journey of going from someone experiencing the medicine and being served the medicine to becoming someone who serves the medicine. My journey into being a plant medicine facilitator and ultimately a shamanic practitioner, which is the ultimate goal, requiring a vast knowledge of the plants, a lot of experience in service with the plants, communing with them. It's not a title that I take lightly or that I just take on frivolously. It is something I'm working toward. As I facilitate ceremonies, I will eventually ascend in ranking, and it's not something that comes from man. It's something that comes from the relationship with the plant. It's something that's endowed to us through our birthright by God, through spirit. So I'm super grateful and excited to talk about this topic. So let's get into it. Like I said, I know there's a lot of clout around plant medicine right now. And so I want to do my best to dispel any beliefs that might not be accurate and to just bring awareness to the uses for plant medicine and the potentials that I believe that they have to shift the trajectory of planet Earth, which is why I'm so passionate about working to this place of being a shamanic practitioner, because I recognize that our people need these medicines. All people, all human beings can benefit from plant medicine, but I do recognize that there is a specific collective trauma, particularly pertaining to Black and Indigenous people who have historically been oppressed on this planet, womb holders, women, and this medicine can do a lot to restore the balance, not to place anybody above anybody else, but to simply even out the scales of justice and to bring peace and harmony back to planet Earth, which is truly the ultimate goal, that we can be living in a state of harmony with love, respect, and compassion for not just ourselves, not just our fellow human beings, but for Earth itself, the sentient mother who is so benevolent and gives us every single thing that we need, and yet we continue to harm her. And we continue to take from her and we continue to poison her, not realizing that we are doing these things to ourselves because we are her. Our bodies came from this dirt. It came from the food that was grown in this dirt, and it'll return to this dirt. And so in order to break the cycles of toxicity, we have to change our lifestyles and change the way that we're living. And plant medicine truly brings awareness to a righteous way of living, a way of living that is in alignment and can benefit all, benefiting planet Earth, benefiting every animal and human being, not being destructive, disruptive to the natural ecosystem and the flow in the environment, much like these current power systems are, such as capitalism, any type of supremacy that puts one group of humanity above another, racism, all of these isms, all of these things that classify and create separation where only love should exist. That is what we are disrupting, and that is what we are shifting out of as we shift from the 3D to the 5D. And that is what the medicine is calling us into and can help us come into an understanding of. So with that, I'm going to go in chronological order of the medicines that I've experienced. First, starting with psilocybin in 2016, I'll move into iboga, and then finally ayahuasca. So Psilocybin, yes. I had my first psilocybin encounter in 2016. I was living with a roommate of mine in Brooklyn, in New York. We ended up at Prospect Park. She's an artist, an incredible artist, still a sister of mine to this day. She would go to like the EDM festivals, and that was kind of her world, was like the music and the medicine and the free love and all of those things. And she's the reason why I got this tattoo, soul, because she introduced me to this poet who used the word soul so much throughout their poetry in such profound and beautiful ways. And it just resonated so deeply with me. Thinking back, I actually had a necklace that said soul in middle school that I got from a teacher of mine. So the idea of soul and always being more than this human vessel has always been a prominent thought at the forefront of my consciousness. And so it's incredible to see how I've evolved into who I am today. That was a tangent. Let me get back to Brooklyn. So this roommate of mine who I was living with, she had experience with these things, and she is the one who introduced me to magic mushrooms, psilocybin, whatever you want to call it. We were at Prospect Park. I can't remember the exact dosage that I took at that time, but I do remember the experience that I had. I'd say it took about 30 to 45 minutes for the medicine to begin really working its way into my system. And when I started to feel the tingling sort of sensations, we took a seat in the grass after walking through the park a bit. And I just remember looking up at this tree and seeing a little bit of geometry, not a lot of shapes that were hard to interpret or visions or downloads or anything of that nature, but just a little bit of geometry. And I remember seeing this sort of ball that looked like it was moving through space-time, which kind of appeared as this grid. And the ball was just like pushing against this like grid, kind of breaking through space-time. And I just remember thinking of that ball as myself traveling through time and space and being this infinite moving particle of energy that was just going through various experiences. It was kind of like experiencing myself on an atomic level or at like the smallest wave, right? Like if you took off the human suit and you took off all of the things that make me Ebonee, and it was just like the energy that I am. That's what I was witnessing, moving through time and space. And it kind of felt like a message of infinity, right? Where I am infinite. There's infinite possibilities. This ball could move in any direction through time and space. I'm free. I am a co-creator. I'm not bound to any one direction, pattern, or way of being. If a habit or way of being or environment or group of friends doesn't suit me or serve me, I can move in a new direction. And so in that way, I think psilocybin is really beautiful because that experience was really beautiful for me. It is a really beautiful plant, but just speaking to that experience, it was really beautiful for me because it was the first time that I started to come into awareness of the fact that so many of us, including myself at the time, are living as results of our environment, our programming, our communities, our families, our friends, what is popular, what is on the news, what is on the television. And so often we don't realize that we are the co-creators of this reality through our thoughts, through our feelings, and through our choices. We have the ability to align to whatever reality we would like to, because all realities exist in the quantum field of possibility already. And it's only our job to align with the frequency of the reality that we want to experience so that we can manifest it, call it in, and experience it right before our very eyes. And so that was very eye-opening for me because it put me in the driver's seat of my life. But with being placed in the driver's seat of your life, which is a reason that I think a lot of people are resistant to it, is because it comes with a lot of accountability. When you realize that you are in charge of your happiness and your peace, and you have the ability to control outcomes, it comes with a lot of responsibility, not only for creating your future, but for looking at your past and recognizing that so many of the things that you've experienced are a result of your own choices and decisions. Now, a lot of those choices and decisions are informed by trauma. They're informed by being in survival mode. They're informed by the version of ourselves that we've had to become in order to make it through our homes as children, make it through school, make it through our neighborhood, make it on the bus, whatever the case may be. Thank that version of yourself because they did the best that they could to protect you within those circumstances. But when you're ready to shift your vibration to align to another reality that is actually more aligned with who you are authentically outside of your trauma, you have to be willing to confront that, face it, let it go with grace, and move in a new direction. And it doesn't always happen in a linear way. It's hard to break a pattern, especially if that pattern is so ingrained in you from childhood. It's something that you've been doing for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 70 years. Some of our grandparents are still just children trapped in adult bodies, acting as if they are 8 years old, acting as if they are 5 years old, because they've never had the privilege, because it is an absolute privilege to be able to take accountability for your life. They've never had the privilege to be able to look back at the trauma that informed their behavior and to move in a new direction. Give them grace and thanks as well, because they're the reason why you're here today. And give yourself grace and thanks because if you're watching this, you've probably decided or been elected by your bloodline to do the necessary work to clear out the trauma and go in a new direction. So congratulations to you, and I'm excited for your journey. But back to Brooklyn once again. Can't help it, man. I just get to preaching. I would say the journey, the peak intensity lasted for about 20 minutes. After that, I continued to feel the medicine throughout the entirety of the day, but I was only laying under that tree for probably about 20 to 30 minutes where I didn't really feel very confident and comfortable in like getting up and moving around. Some people actually take quite a bit of action when they're dealing with psilocybin. Some people want to do karate. Some people want to draw. Some people want to lay down. Some people want to cover themselves with a blanket. It really depends on how the medicine chooses to express itself through you and what you need in order to clear out any blockages that are preventing you from being the most authentic version of yourself, which is pure unconditional love. So I just needed to lay down. It does make you feel a little bit nauseous, a little anxious, not the type of anxiety that is associated with overthinking. It's more like your body's automated response to not feeling so well for like a few minutes. But once you get over that initial wave, you come into a place of understanding and peace. And my suggestion in transitioning into that wave is be in a quiet environment, be out in nature if possible. Close your eyes. Close your eyes if you need to. A lot of the times we come into that space and there's so much stimulation happening, and that is what makes the transition into feeling the mushroom come alive inside of us, one that is anxiety-ridden or nausea-ridden. Go into it respectfully, go into it ceremoniously, go into it with reverence, and a lot of the intensity of those feelings can either be mitigated or just reduced quite a bit, depending on how you go into it. So shrooms, I would say, did not have the same intensity as iboga and ayahuasca, which I sat with to follow. Still a very profound healing experience. I think of shrooms as the ultimate connection to our inner child, where iboga has this masculine connotation associated with it, although through my own research and learning and communication with practitioners, there's actually both polarities of masculine and feminine in iboga. It just tends to be a little bit more straightforward and direct than ayahuasca, which is considered more of a feminine plant. Grandmother is the nickname for ayahuasca, and it seems to be a little bit more abstract in the way that it expresses the information that is being downloaded into your consciousness, which tends to take on sort of more of a feminine flowing feeling. And then Shrooms are like the playful inner child that really unlock your heart. It's that Leo energy. It's that heart chakra energy coming online. Like whatever is blocking your bliss, shrooms are going to bring to the forefront. They're going to put it out in front of you. And I think when people say they're having a bad trip on shrooms, they're really just saying that something inside of me was brought to the forefront of my consciousness that I wasn't ready to see. It doesn't bring anything to you that doesn't exist inside of you. In fact, that's universal law. If you are experiencing encounters with entities outside of you, good or bad, it's because you are holding a frequency inside of you that is compatible with that entity. If you are having an experience of someone behaving a certain way toward you and you don't like it, it's because you carry the vibration of that experience or that behavior within you. It's really a mirror. We're really living in a hall of mirrors, which is such a beautiful opportunity to grow and to learn. You know, if I'm in a relationship and I'm feeling abandoned, I then have the opportunity to say, how am I abandoning myself? You know, and so often we project the negative feelings that come on due to other people's behavior onto them rather than looking at it as an opportunity to come into a deeper understanding of ourselves. That goes back to the accountability and the responsibility that I was talking about. It's so important that we step into that if we truly want to become empowered, sovereign creators of our lives. I would also say that shrooms, magic mushrooms, psilocybin has helped me to restore my innocence. Because it has that deep childlike energy, it's brought me to a place where I recognize that my true deepest desire is to play. In relationship, it made me recognize that I was so willing to show up in intimacy physically because I actually wanted to show up in intimacy in play. And I felt like the only way to get to the play, the co-creation, going to the beach with somebody, taking pictures with somebody, just making music with somebody, all of those things, I thought the access to that was through the physical intimacy, without realizing that if I prioritize the play, the physical intimacy can be a byproduct of that rather than the play being a byproduct of the physical intimacy. I recognize that my soul's deepest desire was truly to be in that childlike state of play and surrender, which is ultimately how we enter the kingdom of heaven, and not just after we die, but how we experience life here on earth in a state of joy and bliss. And coming into that with those pure intentions, and then allowing those pure intentions to manifest however it manifests, if it becomes physical, but not leading with the physical because the world says that's how you come into relationship with somebody. I wanted to lead with the play, and that's what shrooms made me realize. I wanted to lead with the fun. I wanted to lead with the camping. I wanted to lead with the fishing. I wanted to lead with the coloring, all of those things that are so fulfilling to that inner child. And once that inner child is safe, she can open up to the other experiences that come along with being in a relationship. But shrooms just made me deeply reconcile with my inner child and with my innocence. So up next, I did iboga in 2019. So this is about 3 years after my first psychedelic encounter. And this was a much bigger experience. It lasted 2 nights and 2 days. So it was an entire weekend of taking iboga, purging, and integrating. And I'll get into what each of those things mean. So we were asked to fast going into the experience. And so I think I had a little bit of fruit that morning, and going into it, my stomach was pretty empty. We were asked to write down all of our traumas leading into it as well. And I think this was an exercise that we did so that we could bring those things into conscious awareness outside of the medicine in the best way that we knew how, so that when we went into the medicine, we were already disarmed in a way. We were already made vulnerable because we had already expressed these things. And that was Friday during the day. And Friday night is when the ceremony started. And again, I was in upstate New York, and There was about 8 people on the floor at the time, and there was about 5 more helping to facilitate, and then the shaman and his wife and his baby, which it was really an incredible experience to have a baby in the room. Babies are reincarnated souls that carry so much wisdom. I could hear this baby speak like plain English, and it was literally this old man spirit inside of this baby, which I thought was so cool. So this old man was basically like coming back inside of this baby, probably to spread some wisdom or give some messages that we really need in this time. So that was really incredible, but I'll get there. So the ceremony started Friday night. We started with the iboga bark, which was served on a spoon the first time and served in capsules after that. They served it on a spoon because they wanted us to really taste it, get familiar with it, get close to it, not to bypass the taste of it or any part of the medicine experience. First of all, before I even get there, iboga has to choose you. So before I even got to attend the retreat, I had to connect with the shaman, and the shaman had to connect with the plant, and the plant has to approve. The shaman, I think, goes through a process of saying your name to the plant, and then the plant either approves or doesn't approve based on if your soul is ready or not for that experience. The plant did approve me, so I did end up in that experience. And I think I was probably around 25, 26 at that time, which I was the youngest person in the group at that time. And yeah, I guess my soul's evolution was just orchestrated so that at that time, that's what I was ready for. And so we sat down Friday evening. We took the first dose of iboga on the spoon. We then took capsules the rest of the evening. We would dose every few hours. And between each dose, we were all laid down on mats. Now with iboga, you're pretty much laid out the whole time. You still have your motor skills available to you. If you need to get up and use the bathroom, you can, but somebody's probably going to help assisting you and walking you there, because you can feel a little bit weak physically. And so between each dose, we would sit up on the mat and we would integrate. We would speak about what we saw. Now, integration is such a vital part of the plant medicine experience that I can't speak to enough, because we are going through such massive awakenings in that experience. And if you are not integrating it, you can come out of there in a state of deep confusion and deep disillusionment and not understanding how to move forward. You could completely alter your life, and not in a good way, because for example, maybe you have a high-paying corporate job, and iboga or ayahuasca or shrooms is like, but your soul's passion is to paint. Well, without the proper integration, you're not going to make a plan. You're just going to quit your job and go paint. And then what? You can't pay your bills and you're hungry. And who knows what the possibility is? Or, you might start talking to people who aren't ready for the realities that you've experienced through the plant medicine experience, which has awakened you to certain maybe family traumas or levels of consciousness that you weren't previously aware of. And it's so important that we're able to integrate getting a therapist after sitting with plant medicine, before sitting with plant medicine, so you can really break these experiences down into tangible actions and take your time implementing the changes that were shown to you in the medicine. Me, I completely burnt my life down, but everybody can't do that. Everybody shouldn't do that. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it. My path is I have an extreme path. So yeah, we would integrate between the doses. And one thing that really stood out to me that has encouraged and inspired me to move in the path of shamanism is that my experience as a Black woman was so different from the experiences of everybody around me, even the shaman who was holding space for us. And it made me somewhat feel isolated and confused in my experience. Iboga is from Africa. It is an African plant. And so for me, My ancestors were coming online. I was dancing with them. I was drumming with them. I had an experience where I was underneath them as if I was under the soil. And it was like I could look up and see their feet dancing on top of me. And then at one point I was dancing with them around this fire, and they were drumming and they were telling me, if you ever need to find us, just listen to your heart. It's just like the drum beat, which still makes me like very emotional to this day. It was so beautiful. It was very ancestral. I remember every single incarnation, whether I was dirt or I was a tree or I was the fruit that was on the tree, and I was the animal that ate the fruit on the tree, and then I was a shark, and I was a gorilla, and I was all of these different incarnations. My energy has been recycled on this planet over and over again. I've been here so long, y'all. And iboga was just showing me all of my history, my lineage. You know those paper kind of like cut out things that are like holding hands? I'm gonna try to put a picture in there when I edit this visual, but those paper cut out people that are like holding hands. That's what it looked like. I could see that, but it's like each version was a different version of myself throughout history, through my lineage. It was like one was a warrior, one was a princess, one was a this, one wasn't so glamorous, one was a that. And I could even see into the future. But it was like all of those versions of myself were converging in the now. Like I have access to all of those versions of myself in the now. I was dancing at one point and everybody else around me is throwing up. I'm not purging. Basically, the purging is the release of trauma. It's the release of energy. It's the release of toxins. It's the release of DNA that no longer serves you. Anything that has gotten into your programming that is not of service to you on a cellular level, the iboga goes in, pulls it out, and you throw it up. I was holding it down. I was having a completely different experience. Mind you, I'm 120 pounds. I should have been on the flow. Okay. I should have been going through it, but it was medicine. I felt stronger than ever. I felt more alive than ever in my entire life. It was like I had just woke up from this slumber, this spiritual slumber. And I was like, hello, I'm here. I'm online. What's good? Like, what is going on? Welcome back to reality. It was showing me the nature of reality through contrast, the nature of evolution through contrasting experiences, duality, how polarities exist. And that's how we experience life. And that's how we ascend, is through the polarities and sifting back and forth, coming to a place of understanding in the center of those things and integrating all aspects of ourselves. It was very deep and it was very ancestral and it was very different from everybody around me. Even the depth of the trauma that I was sharing was very different from everybody around me, which made me feel isolated. I remember at one point I stood up in the journey and I yelled in the shaman's face and I was like, this is our medicine. First, let me backtrack. Let me really tell y'all how this story went. We're sitting around in a circle. We're about to integrate for the whatever umpteenth time. Okay. It gets to me and I'm like a little frozen in my speech because I can feel this spirit trying to come through me, and my ego, or like the Ebonee version of myself, is like, yo, I can't say this. I'm trying to build up the nerve to let through what is trying to come through me, right? Knowing that it's going to ripple outward and I'm not gonna be able to control it once that valve is released. Eventually, the shaman is like, spit it out. He's getting frustrated with me because I'm holding up everybody else from integration. I was like, I'm trying. I stand up. I rise to my feet on this medicine that has everybody else laid back. I rise to my feet and I say, this is our medicine. I walk toward him. I'm in his face. What are you doing with our medicine? My ancestors are coming through me strong. Meanwhile, everybody is saying this is an ego trip. This is I'm in whatever state that I'm in. No, I know exactly what's going on. My ancestors are pissed off because this medicine has been taken, it's been commodified, it's been gentrified. The people whom it originates from no longer have access to it. The people whom could benefit the most from it are afraid of it and don't have access to it. Meanwhile, other groups of people are benefiting from it at rapid rates, and it was just this moment of reclamation. My spirit wanted reclamation. I was like, God is a Black woman. Everything comes out of the Blackness, the Black woman, the womb. And the shaman was shook. He was sitting back in his seat like this. Get away from me. And then I snapped out of it. That spirit left me. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I went in to give him a hug. He was like, no, please go sit down. But what that showed me was that it is so essential for us to journey with those who look like us, or else we will be isolated and ostracized as we come into our healing, as we come into awareness of who we are. My intention isn't to make people feel bad or make people feel less than, but as a melanated womb holder, I have access to things that other people don't have access to simply because of my DNA. I'm not special. I'm not, I don't think of myself as anything more than anybody else. But the way that the medicine interacts with the fabric of my being is different because of my ancestry, my lineage, my DNA, and my womb, the center of creation. The final thing I'll say about iboga is that it truly endowed me with a sense of purpose, because once I knew who I was and who I am and my lineage and my incarnations and where I come from, it could inform me on how to move forward. And that's where the inspiration for Daughter, my nonprofit organization, came from. We provide birthright trips for descendants of the African diaspora to return back to Africa for immersive, life-changing experiences. I want plant medicine to be involved in those experiences eventually because it was so pivotal for me. And it also gave me the idea for my book, Daughter, which is a memoir about my life and my journey and my evolution of becoming who I am today. Daughter has manifested not only into the title of these things that I've created, but I want to say brand, but it's more than a brand. It's my mission to empower young Black women. That is truly what I am meant to do in this lifetime. That is truly my greatest work in this lifetime, is to bring Black women back to God and back to themselves. And so I'm super grateful for my experience with iboga. Again, I would say like the recap of that would be like ancestral elements, recognizing the need for people who look like you to be holding space, and the polarity of life and how that truly informs our ability to grow. Also forgiveness. Iboga really, it allowed me to forgive. It created it. I think for the first time, it introduced me to unconditional love. Maybe the first time since I was a child. It brought me back to unconditional love and the experience of unconditional love and what that feels like, but definitely charged me with the responsibility of healing my lineage through that unconditional love, forgiveness of my mother and father, forgiveness of myself, healing that inner child, and really repairing what had been broken in my family up until the point that I arrived on this planet. So last but not least is grandmother ayahuasca. Love her dearly. Love her dearly. She is truly a family member of mine, truly my grandmother, whom I have so much love for. When I did ayahuasca, I was again in upstate New York. I was at a friend's house. Again, there was about 8 people on the floor. I would say there were about 4 facilitators. It was kind of a similar setup to iboga, shaman, and then like someone who was helping with cooking, and then a couple more people who had sat with the medicine previously and who were holding space for our experience. And so night 1 was beautiful. It was absolutely gorgeous. I took 1 cup of the medicine and I started feeling it working after about 25 minutes. I was laid out it like this, like the whole time. I don't think I moved at all. I don't think I moved at all the whole time. Some people were moving around me. I stayed pretty still. And the word that kept ringing through my spirit was victory. And I just kept having these beautiful visions of myself in these gowns, having written these books and made these television shows and made these films. It was like I was my version of like a Oprah Winfrey, right? Like Ebonee Davis after all of these accomplishments and becoming like this media mogul. And it just felt like all of that was right there. And I saw victory. The words victory just were ringing through my spirit. And I was just bawling and crying and bawling. Before I got there, I will say though, that the very first thing that I saw was this demonic entity. Again, you don't see anything that doesn't already exist within you. It wasn't like it brought in any demons into my awareness. What it revealed to me is that there was this entity that was attaching itself to my feminine lineage that was getting access to us through alcohol. Now, what was causing my feminine lineage to turn to alcohol was heartbreak. Melancholy is exactly the word that the medicine used. Melancholy from romance was the phrase that the medicine used to describe what created this entry point into the use of alcohol, and then this entry point for this entity to come in and attach itself to my bloodline. And so I could see back for about 3 generations, and it was as if the medicine took my perspective, pulled it back so that I could see the timeline of my life, my mother's life, and my grandmother's life all side by side. And I could see this one demon or entity that kind of looked like an octopus that had tentacles attached to all of us that was sucking all of our life force energy at the same time. And so when you think of dimensions of time and space, here it seems that things are chronological and linear. But when you rise up into higher levels of consciousness and awareness, you realize that all things are happening at the same time. That's why I could see all of the lives being lived at the same time. My mother, my grandmother, and myself, and all of us having our life force being sucked out at the same time. I was seeing it from a state of higher consciousness and a higher dimension. And that's where this entity existed, in this higher dimension. That's why it had access to all of us at the same time. I remember going into my consciousness, or being, all of this is happening in my consciousness. I remember being in my consciousness and then seeing myself in this boxing ring. And I saw my soul expand like bigger than I had ever seen it before. And I'm going to war with this thing, and I'm whooping its ass. Okay, round after round after round, I am whooping this thing's ass, and I beat it. I kill it. Eventually, I rid myself of it. I purge. Okay, so I'm pulling this out of my consciousness and out of my body, this attachment to alcohol as a coping mechanism, out of the patterning of my feminine lineage. Ayahuasca is pulling it out of me, this demon, right? And then I purge. I basically throw up the demon. You know, it doesn't look like a demon when it's in the bucket of vomit, but that's essentially what it is, because a demon is just energy. It's just an entity. It's just frequency. And so it just looks like vomit that's in the bucket. But then I see the words victory ring out. All of that happens pretty quickly, maybe in the first hour. And the whole ceremony that night lasts from about 7 p.m. to like probably around 6 in the morning, I would say. And I see the words victory. For the rest of the night, I'm just like smiling. I'm happy. I'm cheesing. I'm so proud of myself. I've beat this thing that I didn't even know was attached to me. I'm so proud of myself. I've saved my like feminine lineage. I'm seeing myself as this media mogul. Just like that, my dependency on alcohol, my desire for alcohol is gone, because I got to the root of it, which I think is such an incredible gift that can come from plant medicine. It takes you to the root of the trauma and pulls it out. Now I don't want to put poison in my body. Why would I do that? I don't want to hurt myself. I love myself. Where I once felt lack, I feel love. So I don't need to try to fill that with something that's going to further perpetuate these cycles of hurt and shame and guilt. And, I'm hurting the people that I love with my actions because I'm intoxicated and I'm, not able to control myself, recognizing that these are called spirits because they give access to spirits to come in, which is another thing that she showed me. It's like it's in plain sight. It's all in plain sight. It's right there for you to see. And you give access and permission for these spirits to come in and do what they want with you. And as someone who has an anointing on them, of course, every single spirit wants to come in and have its way with you, because then they have dominion over the people that you're influencing. Everybody who's tuned into me right now, if I had a demon, of course, they want to broadcast their mission. And so I saw victory, and I just laid there still all night long, just victory ringing through my spirit, crying, seeing myself in all of my glory. And it was beautiful. The next night, ayahuasca whooped my ass. She took me to the darkness, the pits of my own personal hell, the hell that I had created for myself and that was created for me through the patterning in my lineage. Where do I even begin? I'll begin with my womb. I recognize that emotion takes up space because, again, these are frequencies, they're energies. They have to be examined. When you examine a wave, you change it. What you put your focus on, you change. But if you're not willing to look at something, it doesn't change. It remains there. So when you have emotions and you're not willing to look at them, they stay there. They live in your body. And all of my emotions were living in my womb. I, for years, had the most severe period pain, cramps. Thought I was going to die, have to go into the hospital. Like I had insane, clots, like insane amount of period pain. And it's because all of my unfelt emotions were living in my womb, and it manifested into polyps, which I had to get surgery for. It manifested into infertility because I was trying to conceive and I couldn't. All of this emotion was resting in my womb, wanting to be felt. And the medicine let me know that if we would just go outside and connect with earth, she would take our pain. If we would just sit with ourselves and examine the things that we've been through, the pain would dissipate and we could come into harmony. If we were willing to just change the things that we eat, we could come into harmony with our bodies and the world around us through the healing of our wombs. Not only was I carrying things from my own lifetime, I was still carrying the pain of my ancestry, my ancestors who were enslaved. I had recollections of being pinned down. Trigger warning, I'm so sorry. I had recollections of being pinned down by whoever had me in captivity, of having my legs spread open and having that person insert themselves inside of me as I screamed for help. I remembered that experience that I had probably 400 years ago, present day, because it was alive inside my womb, which up until now, nobody in my lineage has had the privilege of being able to address and look at, in the privilege of having access to these tools that we can heal. And that's why so many of us are suffering from polyps. That is why so many of us have fibroids and cysts and infertility and sickness, and have to get hysterectomies and hysteroscopies, which is what I had to get in order to get the polyps removed in my 20s. At that, I can only imagine what the collective is going through, what Black women are holding on to, who come from enslaved people, formerly enslaved people, what they are holding on to in their wombs. And this is our center of creation. This is the center of all of our potential. We can't create if this is blocked and hurting. We can't create the lives that we desire. We can't create a new world There's people that know that we can't create new life. And there's people that know that. And that's why they keep poisoning the food and putting things in the beauty products, putting things in the water, harming us. They know that for sure. Funny enough, well, I don't even know if it's funny, but my period ended up coming on during the ceremony, which was a crazy, beautiful, painful synchronicity, which reaffirmed what the medicine was telling me in regard to my womb, with me menstruating and just the pain that I was feeling. And eventually, it wasn't just my own pain that I was feeling from menstruating. It's like I could feel the pain of Mother Earth. I could feel the pain of every mother who had lost a son to war. I could feel the pain of every mother who had lost a daughter. I could feel the pain of every young girl. I could feel the pain of every aunt. I could feel the pain of Earth herself as we continue to poison her and harm her and take from her and exploit her and treat her as if she is nothing, not recognizing that we are an extension of her and that everything that we do to her is a reflection of what we have done to ourselves and what is being done to us. I was in such intense emotional and physical pain that really brought me into the consciousness of the power of the womb. I also went into my own feminine lineage, and I could see how the patterns of exploitation were passed down from me. From the time that our bodies were kidnapped in Africa all the way until now, it's always been about the body. It's always been about the vessel. It's always been about beating the consciousness, removing the consciousness, siphoning the consciousness out of us so that the vessel can be controlled and manipulated. And best believe that it's still happening through your phone screen, through your television screen, through the food that you eat, everything that is dulling your senses, decreasing your sense of awareness, programming you into being unconscious about your actions, being impulsive, allowing your flesh to dictate how you move through this world. Best believe it's still happening. The chains don't need to be physical anymore because they have your mind, they have your soul. They've traumatized you into submission. You're addicted to dopamine and to low vibrational foods and everything else that's harmful for you, instead of submitting yourself to God and allowing that to purify you, instead of detoxing your body, instead of exercising self-control, not giving in to those impulses that tell you to go look at the things that you're not supposed to look at, that tells you to call the person you're not supposed to call, to engage with the things you're not supposed to engage with. We're still slaves. Until you do the work to heal, you're still a slave. It's the mentality now. It doesn't need to be physical. But from the time that we were taken, it was all about the vessel. And I saw how those patterns of exploitation had made their way into my own life, from my grandmother's life, who used her body to generate revenue to support her family, to my mother's life, who used her body to generate revenue to support her family, to my life, who used my body to generate revenue to support my family. But I did it in a way that's socially acceptable. I did it in a way that's glamorized. Still exploitation, still the same energy. Being a model was simply an extension of the patterning that was passed down to me from my feminine lineage, all the way back to being kidnapped from the continent of Africa and being reduced to a body, and that being the only thing that has value, the only thing people can see. I had to reclaim myself. I had to take my power back. I had to take my autonomy back. I had to take my mind back. I had to retrieve my soul. I had to plug back into the divine, plug out of all of these other distractions and plug back into God, into what's real, into what truly sustains me, to what truly brings me peace, to what truly keeps me happy, to what allows me to sleep at night and wake up in the morning, not anxiety ridden and full of depressive thoughts of not wanting to be here. not thinking I'm good enough, not thinking I have enough, thinking I need to do more, thinking I need to shift who I am to become more like what is acceptable in this world. Instead of honoring the gifts that I was given, cultivating the gifts that I was given, cultivating my mind. Ayahuasca showed me we come from scholars. We come from those who have studied, created mathematics, created systems of education, and yet we've reduced ourselves to our bodies. Look at the entertainment industry, she said. Who's popular and why do they get to be popular? The ones who are willing to show up wearing nothing. The ones who are willing to show up and put their bodies on the front line, to lead with their sexuality, to lead with lust, to lead with exploiting themselves. They don't need anyone to do it for them. To lead with their value being associated to how they look. Those are the ones we glorify. We don't need to say no names. I bet you got someone in your head right now. Look at what's on television. Look at what's popular. Look at what's on your news feed. Look at what becomes news. You don't think there's an agenda? You don't think there's a reason why all of it looks the same? Slight variations here and there. There's a template that works. There's a formula that works. And we're sticking to it and we're afraid to go outside of it. And the template is target the lowest chakra. Target the root. Target the lust. Then we can extract the resources, the money, the life force, the energy. And what do you have left? Just an empty vessel, a slave to your impulses. It's a good thing that ayahuasca is so intelligent that she saved all of this for the second night, because I was eager to go into it and I was open. It's like I made myself, she got me vulnerable. She got me real open with that first night, which was so beautiful. And then she really showed me the truth of the matter the second night. She showed me the impact that living in LA was having on me. She showed me the future of the planet. She showed me the kingdom that was coming. She showed me the destruction that would take place as the kingdom was arriving and anchoring itself on earth. She showed me the role that I played in that. She showed me my destiny. She showed me my mother and my mother's mother and all of the women who came before me who suffered, whose pain I was carrying. She showed me how to heal. She showed me how to change my lifestyle, to come into awareness. She showed me that emotions take up space and that we have to put focus on them, and then they change. That's why meditation is so beautiful. It's really an extension of the plant medicine experience. It allows you to place your awareness in your body and on the things that come up. And you recognize that things are constantly changing. Once you place your awareness on something, it can change. But it doesn't shift or go away until you're ready to face it and confront it. And that's the common thread between all of these medicines, is that they can bring you into a place of awareness, into a place of higher consciousness, an enlightened state. But it's truly up to you to be accountable, responsible, and to do the work, to change the habits and the patterns and the things you eat and the people that you surround yourself with, to be obedient, because you don't have to do what she suggests. You don't have to. But once you come into awareness of it, your life is going to begin to unravel in ways that you aren't ready for. If you don't take that leap and be obedient, things are going to begin to fall apart and you're not going to understand why. But you were given instruction. Once you know better, you have to do better. Plants can't do the work for you, but they are allies, and they are beautiful allies. And they can show you the why, and the why can prompt you into action that can allow you to heal your life. Not only can it allow you to heal your life, because these plants aren't just for healing, they're technology that allow you to go beyond the present state of consciousness in the present dimension and to truly explore the possibilities of our human potential. And I pray that once we can get beyond the healing aspect, which we still have a long way to go, we can truly tap into the potential that we have to be so much more, to be superheroes, to truly embody the powers that we've only allocated to television characters, because that is our true identity. That is who we truly are.